for taking the time to attend this event. It's the 6th in a series of webinars given by the Lewis College of Business faculty and local business professionals. The series showcases the combined expertise of our best faculty and seasoned and knowledgeable practitioners from the business community in which we engage. The goal of this series is to help small businesses as they emerge from the COVID-19 crisis. Before we begin today, I would like to introduce Avi Mukherjee, Dean of the Lewis College of Business, Brad D. Smith Schools of Business, who will say a few words about the college and its mission.
Thank you, Nancy, and good morning. Welcome everyone to this exciting event. We appreciate your interest in this HEARD 2020 Insights Small Business Webinar Series. The mission of the Lewis College of Business and its Brad D. Smith Schools of Business is to promote economic development in the regional community and beyond. We do this by implementing our strategic priorities for external engagement and economic development, including lifelong learning programs, the Business and Economics Research Symposium, the Dean's Distinguished Speaker Series, and the CEO panel that many of you attended last spring. The college also has outreach centers, including the Center for Entrepreneurship and Business Innovation, or the I-Center, that helps small businesses innovate with a focus on design thinking, and the BB&T Center for Leadership that promotes consulting and research projects between students and the community. The college also cooperates with the Brad D. Smith Business Incubator to help promote entrepreneurship throughout the region. As the nation and the state start rebuilding businesses and economies coming out of the pandemic closures and lockdown, the Lewis College of Business is committed to supporting our local businesses, alumni, and other stakeholders in re-engaging, recharging, and redesigning their business models. Hence, we have developed this webinar series that will consist of presentations through the fall and into the spring every alternate week. We hope that you enjoy today's presentation and take something out of it to use in your business or professional activities to make West Virginia and the surrounding area a better place for business and community engagement. Nancy Langton will now introduce today's speakers.
Thanks, Avi. Today's informative and engaging presentation is titled Emerging from the Pandemic, a Small Business Health Checkup. It is brought to you by Monisha Gupta and Jim Sutherland. Monisha is a faculty member in marketing at the College of Business and is also our director of the BB&T Center for Leadership. She has prior work experience in marketing, retail, hospitality, and advertising. Jim is a retired audit partner from Dixon Hughes Goodman. He is a licensed CPA and has 40+ years as a consultant to small and medium businesses. Monisha and Jim will discuss how to avoid common mistakes, tackle concerns of your employees and customers, and move towards healthier organizational composition. Please feel free to ask questions via the chat function throughout the presentation. Monisha and Jim will answer these questions at the end. I now turn it over to our presenters.
Thank you, Nancy. We're happy to be here to talk through our small business health checkup today. Today, what we want to do is to talk about operational marketing and financial positions, a review of those, and to have you think about where you stand in your small business on some specific matters. I don't know that we'll have anything brand new or surprising here, but there's a lot of things that small businesses need to think about, and think of this as a diagnostic and a checkup. So if we can go on to the next slide, I want to start with some background. There's 29 million small businesses in the United States, employing 57 million people, which is a staggering number. One survey recently said that 42% of small businesses are at risk of failure during this pandemic. And there was a survey where they inquired about the most common needs of small businesses. And these are the 5 most common needs of small businesses. One is accessing government programs. There's been tons of government programs rolled out. They're complicated. There's a lot to them. The second is pivoting the small business's business model. The third is managing financials. Next is adjusting operations and human resources, and then finally managing the supply chain. So we're going to talk about some of those as we go through today. So small businesses, first of all, let me say, small businesses have some advantages. Small businesses can be nimble. They can be easy to change because there's one owner or just a handful of owners. Small businesses often have a very loyal local following. I prefer to buy at local small businesses if I can. I think most people do. Small businesses can have very energetic owners that work harder than a lot of corporate people do in big businesses. Small businesses also have some disadvantages. The first one is the cost of change. You know, a small business owner, you've got to put up the same signs that General Motors has to put up in its waiting rooms, probably. The difference is they can amortize that over 10 million cars a year that they sell, and you can't amortize it. So if you look at the cost of change per unit sold, sometimes it's more challenging for small businesses. Small businesses have less access to working capital. That's certainly a disadvantage. Have less access to debt and equity markets than big businesses do. And they usually have less professional resources. A big business is going to have a team of HR people and accountants with sharp pencils to analyze things, and lawyers. Small businesses aren't going to have that. So there are advantages and disadvantages as we go forward. At present, there's several things going on with marketing, and Manish is going to talk about more of this in a minute. 8 in 10 small businesses have reported negative impact of this coronavirus on their business, and frankly, I'm surprised it's not 10 out of 10.
Yes.
At the same time, 76% saying they are skilling in areas such as search engine optimization, social media data analytics, and Manish is going to talk about that a lot more in just a few minutes in the marketing section. And most are introducing new technologies, which we're going to talk about in some detail. Chat, mobile apps, email, video. The good news is consumers still seem to be shopping. There's still impulse purchases on a macro level. People are still spending money in a lot of industries, and still making even impulse purchases. Now the money's being allocated. There's more money going to grocery stores than there are to restaurants nowadays, being reallocated. But the economy is still moving forward. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to divide this into 3 areas. I'm going to talk about operations. Manish is going to talk about marketing, and then we're going to switch back to me, and I'm going to talk about financial. We're going to wrap up with some additional resources that you can access. Operational health checkup. Let me start with that. We're going to go through several common mistakes of small businesses. The first common mistake that small businesses make is managing the crisis and not the long-term direction. So I would just refer you back to Stephen Covey, the difference between the urgent and the important. And sometimes we get tied up in doing the urgent and don't get around to doing the important. So everything you read says we need to rethink and re-engineer our processes, our products, our service offerings. We need to investigate and update our supply channels and delivery systems, both how we receive things, the supply channels, and how we deliver products and services. You know, there was an article the Sunday before last in the Charleston paper about supply channels for small businesses, and they interviewed several small businesses in Charleston. One was a bike shop that couldn't get bicycles for inventory. Well, that really affects you a lot if you're a bike shop. You know, it's tricky really being agile in a landscape where business as usual no longer applies. So the second common mistake is trying to make every decision yourself. Small businesses, some don't do a very good job of empowering employees to work independently, to make their own decisions. equipping their employees with new responsibilities, although a lot have actually say they have reinvented themselves during the pandemic. The third common mistake is trying to know everything about every topic. Small business people are entrepreneurs. They want to run their business well, and some of them get tied up in making every decision themselves and learning everything they can about every topic. And they don't rely on their professional advisors very well or often. They don't connect with their industry association and build relationships with other people in their industry where they can talk about best practices. These are really resources we're going to talk a little bit more about later, but don't try to, as a small business person, don't try to know everything there is about every topic. You'll never get there. The fourth common mistake is postponing opening plans, not thinking about what the future is going to be. You know, what the best practice now is to invest in safety, make your sites safer for your customers, your employees, and again, learn from industry leaders and professional advisors. The final is not adopting new technologies. You see this, I've seen this over the years. Some small businesses are really good about adopting new practices and new technologies. I have seen some that are terrible. I've had small business clients that you walk in their office and it's like it's 1950 in their office, and there's typewriters and stacks of paper, and that doesn't really cut it nowadays. So it's really incumbent upon small business people to learn about solutions, business solutions, technology advances in your industry, learn from industry associations, industry leaders, to digitally enable your business, focusing on customer service and on high tech. Okay. Manisha, we want to talk about an example?
Yes, please. In fact, I want Jim to please share this very interesting example. He went traveling recently, and while we were talking about it, we thought it'd be great to share an example of what small businesses can do when they choose to. So Jim, if you'll please share this.
Okay, so I've listened to all of these webinars, the Marshall webinars so far. This is the sixth one. I've listened to the prior 5 ones. And everyone has said, you need to be nimble. You need to innovate. You need to re-engineer. You need to redesign. But, you know, the practical examples are few and far between, I've found in these webinars. I mean, it's real easy for a speaker to say that. It's real hard when you're a small business owner trying to figure out, well, what do I do today in my small business to re-engineer and redesign and re-equip? That's just, it's way too conceptual for most small businesses. So I'm gonna, if you bear with me for a couple minutes, I'm gonna give you a practical example of a great experience I had recently with a small business. So we went to visit our daughter and son-in-law and our new granddaughter, did the grandparent thing. So we traveled out west a couple months ago, did it very safely, wore masks on the plane, did all the social distancing. We were there for a week and a half. And I did the dad thing, and I said, I will take your car into the shop. I know how you don't like dealing with your car and the repairs on it and the service departments, and I'll take your car into the shop for you. And whatever it needs, I'll take care of it for you. So I set up an appointment to take my daughter's car in the shop. About 2 days before my appointment, I get a text message from the Toyota dealership. It says, Mr. Sutherland, thank you so much for scheduling this service appointment. We have you scheduled for 9:45 on Tuesday morning. We've assigned you to the blue lane and the blue team. So when you arrive, please follow the blue signs into the service department, and we'll take care of you. So I arrived at 9:45. I noticed there were color codes. I think there were 4 different color codes with different lanes. And I think 4 people showed up at 9:45, and I had the blue lane. So I pull up, and the blue service manager in a blue shirt comes up, greets me, thanks me, keys in my license plate number, greets me by name, is wearing a mask, she says, now, Mr. Sutherland, here's what we have for you today. The cooling system needs checked, the brakes, this. We have these 6 things for you today. We're going to, let me make sure, is that right? Do you need anything else? Do you need a ride anywhere? I said, no, I'll just wait here. And frankly, I was a little worried about that because service department waiting rooms are known to be tight and not very comfortable, and sometimes they're kind of grungy in some places. And I've been in a lot of these in my life. I've taken care of my wife and my 3 daughters' cars, so I've been in a lot of service departments. But I said, no, I'll just stay here. She said, I'll tell you what, the technician's gonna look at this right now. Within 30 minutes, you need to watch your phone, make sure I have your phone, your iPhone number, your cell phone number. You're going to receive a text for the service proposal of our evaluation of these 6 things. And they won't be done, but it'll have our evaluation of them, what it'll take to get them done. I said, that's fine. So she said, now we've converted the new car showroom into the waiting area. So you can go over there and wait, or we'll take you somewhere, or you can leave. But whatever you want to do, watch for a text in 30 minutes. So I go over to the new car showroom. First thing I notice is there's spaced out seating everywhere. There's people sanitizing it. There's spaced out seating everywhere. They have flat screen TVs everywhere, and they have popcorn and ice cream.
So as you can tell, Jim was having a great experience.
So,
yeah, right.
I get an ice cream cone, and I settle down in front of a flat screen TV and get on the internet, on the Wi-Fi, and you wouldn't believe how fast 30 minutes flies by. And 30 minutes to the minute, I get a text. Here's your service proposal for your services today. And on my iPhone, you open up an app, and it lists each item. So number 1, brakes. Here's a picture of your brakes. Picture your front brakes. Here's a picture of your back brakes. There are 3 different brake options, A, B, and C. Here's the one we recommend. Here's the cost, and here's how long it'll take to fix it. Cooling system needs recharge. Here's our evaluation of that. Here's the cost. Here's the time it'll take to fix it. All 6 things. And then, by the way, here's 5 other things you didn't ask about that we recommend you consider. For each of those 5 items, here's the cost, here's the time to fix it, and here are the options within that. It needs to do windshield wipers, by the way. Did you know there's 5 different types of windshield wipers you can get on your car? and they run from $19 to $89. And wow. I think, well, I'm not going to put cheap windshield wipers on my daughter's car, for gosh sakes. So I get her the best windshield wipers. So I go through the app on my phone, and I click yes, 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 no, yes, no, yes, no. I make each choice, submit, and that whole process takes me about 2 minutes. Okay, and that's the hardest work I did all day that day. I was making those decisions. I settle back in. I get a text back. It says, "Here's our estimate of the total cost, and it's going to be 2 hours and 15 minutes. Stay on site. You can wait, come back, be 2 hours and 15 minutes. Here's our estimate now, the total cost," which is fantastic. I settle back in, get another ice cream cone, I get on the internet, watch something on TV, and 2 hours goes by really fast. At 2 hours, I get another text that says, "Mr. Sutherland, your car's finished. We're sanitizing it now. Please, we're going to bring it around to the blue door in 5 minutes. If you could meet me at the cashiers, I'd appreciate it. If you're not on site, just text me and let me know when you're coming, and I'll watch for you." So that barely gives me time to get a bag of popcorn for the road and walk around the cashiers, walk out of the cashiers. Everybody's wearing masks. Everybody's wearing shields. She explains what they did to me. I pay. I thank her. I pay. She gives me my keys in a little sanitized pouch with her business card in it, her contact information in it. I go out, get in the car, drive off. As I pull out of the parking lot, I get another text that says, "Thank you for using our services today. Please complete this survey, rate us on all these factors, and list here all the things that if there's anything we could do better, please list them here. And I gave I got back to my daughter's house. I ranked them all 5-star. You know, I didn't have, couldn't think of any suggestions. I was going to say something about the flavor of the ice cream, but I wasn't bold enough.
That was not their business.
But let me just summarize by saying, here's what I like about that, my experience. And I'm going to go back next time I go visit my daughter. I'm going to take her car in again, whether it needs it or not. Here's the things I liked about that. 1, it was absolutely 5-star service. 2, it was high tech. 3, it was mobile. I could do it anywhere. I could be anywhere and do it. They really simplified it, and they gave me control over the process where I could make decisions, and I felt like I was in control of the process. They took all the anxiety out of it for me. So well, I'm going to turn it back over to Monisha now. There must be plenty. You're going to talk about marketing. There must be plenty of marketing ideas in there, Monisha. So take off on the marketing section.
Thank you so much, Jim. There are lots of ideas from what he said. The best proposal during any market or economic change for organizations, as Jim said, is to be nimble. You have to have both a willingness and an ability to handle adjustments and take advantage of emerging market possibilities. Change is not always bad. In fact, can be great. It opens up new opportunities. Businesses which are quick at their diagnosis and do not postpone the process of change are known to take advantage of the situation. Next slide, please. I want to share the highlights of a survey which was done in April 2020, just 1 month into the pandemic. You would have thought that this was too soon to predict the need for a change in business strategy or marketing efforts. However, when you look at the chart 1, which is in pink, it shows what 300 marketing professionals across industries felt when they were asked about the impact of COVID on their business strategy. The response is quite interesting. Only 6% of those interviewed believed that this situation was going to have minimal or no impact on their business strategy, which in effect means that 94% believed they would have to take extreme, strong, or at least moderate steps to change the way they conduct business. And also that this change was here to stay, as is illustrated on the second chart on the right side of your screen in black, which shows that 70% of the sample predicted that the change would have a lasting impact on their marketing efforts. Only 17% businesses believed that things could go back to normal, and another 13% were uncertain about what the future had in store for them. Moving on to the next slide, you will see this shows the impact that COVID had on the advertising efforts by small businesses. This information was collected in 2 waves. The first wave, which was during the 3rd week of March, just when there was a realization that this situation was a market-altering situation and things were not going to go back to the way they were, we noticed a typical knee-jerk reaction compounded by fear and an effort by businesses to soften their downfall and reduce expenses. Marketing campaigns were held back, canceled, stalled, mediums were changed, messages were revised. Wave 2, which is shown in the darker blue, was held within 2 weeks of wave 1, and we see that the number of such cases actually grew. Other businesses decided to follow the lead of wave 1. The numbers rose from 49% to 64% of those who decided to hold back their campaigns till 2021. 45% rose to 50% who decided to stop a campaign mid-flight. Others adjusted their media types or canceled a campaign altogether. It basically shows us how most businesses reacted by cutting costs and holding back on changes. And they all adopted a wait and watch strategy. Alina, can I still go back to the previous slide, please? Thank you. What is really interesting on this slide is what I wanted to show you. When you look at the last bar chart, which is 24% of the businesses launched a new campaign. This was something that they had not planned before. These are those businesses which had worked out a new strategy in the midst of all this. They wanted to still communicate to their customer bases. These could be either restaurants who worked out a contactless delivery program, or it could be businesses which wanted to engage with the community or wanted to talk about the safety measures they've taken for their employees, whatever was the message. These 24% found new reasons to stay connected with their customers. These and businesses like these are the architects of change. Now for the next slide, please. I want to talk to you about recession marketing, which is really all about tackling the uncertainty that accompanies unprecedented times and what businesses should do to prepare for a better future. The present period, of course, is representative of extremely challenging times with hardly any parallels to draw from history. The only recent comparison to 2020 could be 2008. However, at that time, if you look at marketing alone, digital marketing was only a fraction of what it is today. So what should a typical recession marketing plan look like? Ideally, it should have three parts. The first is the ride down, then the ride up, and the process of acceleration. So the very first one, that is of the initial downturn, usually comes so fast that most businesses do not get time to prepare for it. Like we witnessed with COVID. Within 2 weeks, we saw businesses come to an immediate halt. Therefore, the most important phase is the stage 2. This is the defining period when some businesses embrace change and others get paralyzed with fear. The intention of every business should be to take steps which will make their brand top of the mind as soon as there is an upturn in economy. It is also the time when promotional costs actually get reduced and every dollar that you spend has far-reaching effects. Now, you would ask me why? Because as I explained in my previous slide and we saw, there were so many businesses that are actually cutting down their communication budgets, making it economical for the others to still connect with their customers at a lower cost. You can actually reach them. So the biggest stumbling block in communication is, what should you say at a time like this? What should the businesses really be communicating? I can just summarize to say that whatever you say, it has to be, of course, relevant, but sensitive too. The messages can be aimed at building loyalty, experimenting with new ideas. Interestingly, the companies that continued to advertise throughout the 2008 recession were the ones that grew immensely. And the greatest example was Amazon. Yes, Amazon grew by 28% even in 2009. The third stage is great for businesses who've used the time of stage 2 wisely, and they use this time to identify their strengths, zero in on the right target customers, or devise changes in their product, or alter their communication plans, or whatever they wanted to do. They've done that at stage 2 so that they're able to ride the wave of accelerated growth in the stage 3. The next slide, please. Marketing health checkup, taking off from where Jim left. The marketing health checkup is to address the common mistakes that businesses tend to make. These would include, first and foremost, trying to guess what the customer wants. This is not to disregard the rich experience of interacting directly with customers. It is a fact that customers and their needs, and therefore demands, are constantly changing. And businessmen have to have a finger on the pulse of change, not just guess what the customer wants, just go ahead and find out exactly what their needs are. The easiest cost cutback is to reduce marketing expenses, whereas in reality, this could probably be one of the most inappropriate steps to take at this time. It makes the gap between the business and the consumer wider. It makes it difficult to fill the void that prolonged times of silence can create. The consumer at this time has no idea what the organization has changed. They don't know whether the business has introduced some new products or how they have made changes in their business plans. All this results in a breakdown in the relationship between the two parties. Another common mistake is to adopt a passive role. This is when businesses decide to have a wait and watch strategy, and they cease to be a part of the change, and they end up as a byproduct. Don't keep waiting for things to return to normal. What is this normal? The normal dynamics, probably why a business is called dynamic. Elena, can we go back to the previous slide? Why business is called dynamic is because it's forever evolving. Most businesses never return to the same point, never, ever. Things keep changing. And those that embrace the change are the ones who can make the most of the situation by thinking big and using the downtime to rediscover themselves. Some suggestions, some ideas. Next slide. Could be to take surveys, replace guesswork with actual data, accurate data. Take surveys, identify the new pain points, identify your new target audience, better understand their specific requirements. Downtime is used by the biggest of industries to upgrade their communication tools or make changes in their technology. This is a great time to be used by small businesses too. To build on your strengths. If you have a stronghold in the marketplace, whatever is your stronghold, work on further strengthening that by keeping the communication channels open. Connect with your customers, share what you're doing. That's what I mean by plan, prepare, and publish. Plan what you want to say, prepare how you want to say, and just go ahead and connect with the customers. Don't keep them in the dark. Identify new products or markets. This could be, you could go in for a product differentiation or a market penetration or new development or downsizing or upsizing. These are tough questions that need to be addressed at this time. Concentrate on the most profitable products. This is the 80-20 principle that most businesses know and handle, where they get 80% of their revenue from 20% of their product lines. Times like the present are critical to identify the low performers and weed them out of the system. Think big. Do not let the current scenario intimidate you. There are so many new businesses which have come up in such a short period and made it big. Why can't the existing businesses who have a relationship, who know their customers, make the most of it? You can do it. Moving on to Jim, who's going to take you to the financial health checkup.
I'm going to zip through this really fast so that we have time for questions. I've got, I think I have 6 items in this financial health checkup, and I'm going to spend about 10 seconds per slide here so we have time for questions. The first is, the first common mistake is not having timely and accurate financial information. You know, today is September 14th, and if I'm a small business person, I need to have August 31st financial statements on my desk right now, and I need to know where I stand, actual versus budget this year versus last year, projected for next year. If you don't have that on your desk, that's not good. Some people wait to the very end of the year and let their accountant tell them how much money they made. That's not good. So you need to have accurate financial information and timely. Secondly, the second common mistake, we could change the slide, Alina, is not securing capitalization and liquidity. You need to have a banking relationship, a good banking and financial relationship. You need to know where you stand with your invested capital, loans. If anything needs refinanced, have a budget that has minimum cash balance goals. Cash flow is a factor in 82% of business failures. So a lot of small businesses don't do a good job of really securing capitalization and liquidity. And a lot of that is banking relationships, not having a solid banking relationship. Third is not securing profitability. This is one of the things that big businesses do really well that small businesses don't do very well. You know, a big business will try to make a line of business profitable, try to make a product line, a service profitable, a location profitable. And if they can't do it, they'll try to remediate it and change it so that it's profitable. If they can't do it, they close it today, tomorrow, this Friday, it's closed. The location's closed, the line of business is closed, the people who are unproductive are outsourced or right-sized. Big businesses do a better job of this than small businesses. Some small businesses just hang on to losing money month after month without making the changes that need to be made, unfortunately. Next is not knowing where you stand on financial matters. There's a lot going on now. Man, these PPP loans are tremendously complex. The regulations were, what were the regulations? Something like 600 pages. The repayment status is complicated. A lot of people got these loans. They may or may not have to pay them back. Do you know where you are? That's an important financial matter. Do you know where you stand on that? You know where you stand on the cash flow projections for the end of the rest of the year? Tax estimates have been changed all over the place. There are going to be losses this year that may generate tax carrybacks, you know where you stand on that. Where do you stand on a line of credit, your capacity for borrowing, your ability to invest additional capital, credit scores. Small businesses sometimes just do not know where they stand on important financial matters, which that's the responsibility of the owner. There just isn't the other way around it. Next is overinvesting in overhead, inventory, people, facilities. It's a little bit of a duplicate, but you just need to right size your business to get to profitability. It just has to be done. Finally, is intermingling business and personal financial matters. I was going to lecture you on this a little bit. I'm not going to do that. Just don't do that. Just keep your business financial matters and your personal financial matters separate. It makes everybody a lot happier in the end. So the most important of all of these checkups, operations, marketing, financial, is building relationships. It's interesting, we're in the middle of a social distancing bonanza now, and what I'm saying is you need to build relationships and communicate a lot with people that can help in these areas. So, and it actually can be micro or macro, can be kind of strategic, or it could be detailed to the level of your business. So the next slide, there's a list of people that you need to have good relationships with. Your banker. You know, can you be on a Zoom call this afternoon with your banker and talk about your line of credit, your working capital, financing needs? Can you talk this afternoon with a CPA or accountant and understand where you stand on a lot of these financial matters? If financial advisors, attorneys, insurance agents, there's risks all over the place here. You need to know where you stand with your insurance agent. HR people, either you have an HR person in-house or you have a resource to get human resources information. There's HR issues all over the place here. A lot of people need marketing consultants or have marketing consultants. So this is the time to be building business relationships with all these people. Every one of these people is available for a Zoom call today, I think. And they're all in the same situation you all are. They're trying to figure out how do I be a banker in the social distancing time, or how do I be an accountant? And this is the time we really need to build strong relationships with all of these people. And finally, we need to actively participate in industry groups. Whatever industry you're in, there's industry groups. There's national versions of them. There's state versions of them. There's subspecialties within your industry. And this is one of the best places to meet other people that are in the same situation you are and share information, learn about best practices. My experience is that you get much more than you give when you participate actively in the industry groups in whatever industry you're in. I just wrap this up and say that, you know, runners talk about, I'm not a runner, but the marathon runners talk about saving energy for the last mile. And I don't know if we're in the last mile of the coronavirus or not, but we need to attack the last mile with courage and resolve. And this is the time to do an honest assessment where you stand. Think of this as a checkup. And this is the time to take action so that we're strong coming out of this. Monisha, I guess, are we ready for questions?
Yes, I think we are. In fact, we have one from Dr. Tate already. And I'm sorry, Dr. Tate, I did not type an answer because somehow in the middle of all this, my computer gave way and I'm working on a system that I'm not familiar with. So I didn't type the answer. We're going to try and take that question. Nancy, can we take that as the first question that Dr. Tate has typed in the chat?
Thanks Monisha and Jim for an enthusiastic, informative, and insightful presentation today. It'll help us all think some more about how to make our businesses healthy as we emerge from the crisis. It's like Monisha said, it's now time to read some of the questions. And there is one posted to the chat box, and I'll read it. Last night, I was watching one of the cable channels where they were discussing the impact of COVID-19 on small businesses. While COVID-19 is culturally and colorblind, The report stated that it has impacted small businesses owned by African Americans. Typically, these small businesses are based on sole ownership, hence more negative impact of COVID-19. Any comments on this?
I'll take that, Jim. And I think it's a very interesting question, Dr. Tate. Thank you so much for this, because what you've raised here seems to be something that is being debated for the African American community and other minority groups, which are usually more impacted during recessionary phases. And this is no surprise that they are impacted even more so. In fact, there are many studies that we are reading about which show that they were impacted negatively even for health and not have ability or access to great health care. So although I have not read this report, I'm not surprised by this, because whenever there is a recession and people are cutting back on expenses, and you're talking about economic groups which are in any case marginalized, you see a greater impact there. So I think this was to be expected, and it's sad, but one of the pitfalls of what happens when there is a recession. Yes. But the good news is that these people are usually the most, should I say, dynamic, because they have the least to lose and are known to bounce back. And we hope that the same would come true now. We have another question. Thanks. Thank you, Dr. Tate.
Okay, another question is, you mentioned that small businesses can look for more information through different sources. Can you share some good sources of information?
So yes, we put some of that in the chat. Is that right, Monisha?
In fact, it's on another slide. Elena, if you can move to the next slide. As you can tell, we had a technical breakdown, so we're requesting Elena to move to the next slide. The one after that, Elena, it has a list of resources, or we can copy and paste and put it in the chat so that everybody can have access to this. These are some sites that we found highly useful.
Yeah, I would say I'm retired now, but my firm's webpage at BHG's COVID-19 website listed there is the last item there has all kinds of webinars and resources for financial related items for COVID-19.
Okay, great. Another question is, what are the limits to customer surveys? For example, who knew 20 years ago that we would all be using cell phones? If we had surveyed people, then would they have said they needed them?
That is, thank you for this question, Bob. This is so true. That's why we keep saying that the market is totally dynamic. Things are constantly changing, and how accurately this question summarizes what we've been saying, because who knew that 20 years ago we'd be using cell phones? In fact, on another slide of mine, Elena, if you can show the bar graph after this. Yes, thank you. So I actually also was studying this just last night and put it up to show the difference that has happened in the choice of advertising channels from just 2000 to 2019, when it was last captured. You would see that the total advertisement that was spread across different parameters has completely changed. Newspapers, television, magazines, and radios used to be the majority choices for businesses, which are quickly getting replaced by digital. Now the internet or digital marketing is 42% of the entire spend is on digital marketing. So who knew? And yes, what are the limits to customer surveys? There are no limits. You can get today, in fact, thanks to big data, you can analyze data much faster, much more accurately with much larger numbers and at a much lower expense. So if we had surveyed people 20 years ago, definitely what they would have said then would be different from what they would be demanding now. You're right. Things have totally changed. Thank you for this question, Bob. There is another question. Nancy.
Another question is, you have recommended active involvement in industry associations and sharing of ideas and best practices with peers. Does that run the risk that we would disclose confidential information to competitors and they would find out what we are doing?
I'll answer that. I don't think so. I think that's very minimal. And I got to say, from from being a CPA for 40 years. I've been a member of a lot of CPA associations, been to a lot of meetings, national, regional meetings on all kinds of topics and subtopics and specialties. And I always receive more than I give at those things when I go to them. And it's always amazing what I can learn about best practices. I'll tell you just a quick story. Some people I think that have figured this out, this industry association sharing better than anybody else, are car dealers. If you ask a car dealer, there's a concept in the car dealership industry called 20 groups. And a 20 group is you, and if you're a car dealer, you and 19 other car dealers that are the same make and model in similar size cities getting together as a group and studying best practices, sharing information. If you see any car dealer, ask them if they're a member of a 20 group, because they all know what it is. Most of them are. So you get together, you share your metrics with other car dealers in other parts of the country, and you go around the table and you talk about all the problems you have, all the opportunities you have, how you're dealing with things. And they say that is a phenomenal resource for owners of businesses in that industries. And I would just recommend that being an active member of your industry associations is one of the best things you can do to really figure out how to navigate the business environment we're in, because it's different in every industry.
True.
Thank you. Another question is, you mentioned that reducing marketing expenses is not recommended, but shouldn't promotional expenses justify sales? When sales are dropping, how can you justify the marketing expenses?
Yes, thank you for that question. It's true that usually we measure the promotional expense as a percentage of a return to sales. The two are linked. You expect to spend some money and get some returns. But really, if you look at promotion, that expense is built into building relationships, taking off from like what Jim just said. Whether you look at it in marketing or you look at it in the financial or operations, all of them are talking about building relationships. And any amount of expense that you have already incurred to build that relationship would get wasted if you do not continue. Because the biggest, the biggest joy of being in the market is to be able to build loyalty, and that cannot be replaced. That's a huge cost that you would have to incur in case you broke this relationship. So it's worth it to go on investing in promotion. And as we are discussing, as somebody else also raised the point, the cost of being involved in that discussion is reducing. You do not have to get into expensive television ads or newspapers. You can just stay connected with consumers on platforms which do not cost you much, but they know that you're there. They know that you care about their opinion and that you're as invested in what they want as in what you want to give them.
Okay, great. Another question is, if a small business does not have a business relationship with all of the necessary professionals you mentioned, attorneys, banks, accountants, etc., how would you recommend selecting one and establishing a new relationship?
I'll answer that. I got those kind of questions all the time as a practicing accountant. I'd have a client call and say, look, I've got this legal question. Do you know a law firm that I should talk to about this? Or we're not so happy with our bank. Do you have any banking suggestions? What bank should we be working with? First of all, I would ask other professionals that you do work with who they would refer. Next, I would focus on professionals that are your size. There are small banks, community banks, good, solid local banks in our communities that help small businesses. And there's also Bank of America and JP Morgan Chase. And, they fit a niche. I mean, Bank of America is looking for $100 million line of credit customers. That's what they're looking for. I mean, if that's not you, then there's a community bank that is good for you. So I would say, first of all, get a professional that's your size. All these professionals, accountants, lawyers, there are firms and businesses that cater to businesses your size. First thing I would do, I would size it properly. And then I would get referrals from other professionals and go to these industry groups and talk to your peers and find out who they use for some of their services. And I know some of these people charge by the hour and it's expensive. And I don't want to spend your entire budget recommending you do this, but it's dramatic. It's significantly important to have good relationships with all of these professionals, every professional that we've listed here.
Okay, another question came in. Do you think customers will be more forgiving of poor or different service in the current climate, or because of what is going on right now, do you think they might be less forgiving because they're stressed out?
I think they'll be less forgiving. I didn't tell you the story when I got back to Charleston. I had to get tires on my car, and I had a 1-star experience at a tire shop in Charleston. Okay, and I was very unforgiving for that. I just think people are expecting a higher level of service and a new normal.
I'm going to add to that I think I know we've been hopping on relationships, but I'm going to go back to that and add that it really depends. If you have invested and you are constantly in touch with them and they know exactly the changes that the industry is going through and therefore how that's impacting your productivity, they will be forgiving. I mean, I can take an example of, say, restaurants. Like, obviously, there has been a change in what they can supply and how they can supply it. But we've seen a lot of consumers becoming more forgiving. So I think it's going to be a mix. It depends. If you're able to communicate very honestly, and that honesty comes through to your customers, they will be forgiving. Look, Jim shared another example, Jim, of an excellent experience that you had, right? Which was through another car dealer. So you were probably a consumer who was able to compare the two, and you could tell between somebody who made the effort to change and somebody who didn't. Right. So as long as you can see that somebody is making an effort, I think customers are quite respectful of that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have time for a quick answer to one more question. I find it hard to prepare a budget not knowing what the future will hold. Do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's
that's a tough one.
I would say you do a best case and a worst case scenario. I would say, if for lack of anything else, I would say a best case scenario is same as last year. For most businesses, it just obviously depends on your industry and whether you're slow or whether your business is on fire nowadays. Everybody's different, but I would say for most businesses, base case scenario might be same as last year, and worst case scenario might be 1% off of that. And there's no use burying your head in the sand. I think most business owners need to know where they stand on their budget year to date through the end of the year and what next year looks like, because it's your money and there's not a lot of it, and you just can't continue to lose money every month and lose cash every month.
Okay, this wraps it up for our 6th HERD 2020 Insight Small Business webinar. We want to thank our presenters and announce our next webinar that will be in 2 weeks on September 28th. It is titled The New Decade of Marketing. We are excited about this event. It will feature current Chief Marketing Officer of HubSpot, Kip Bodnar, in conversation with faculty member and iCenter Director Ben Eng and Director of the Brad D. Smith Incubator and the iCenter Tricia Ball. There will be a question and answer period at the end. Look for your registration email to arrive shortly. Be sure to respond quickly and share the email invite with anyone you know who might benefit from this event. We appreciate your participation, and always remember, we are Marshall.
Thank you so much.